r/askreddit. For everyone who has their first time with a sex worker, how was it? Do you regret it? NSFW. I lost my virginity to a prostitute at a massage parlor. I was 19 and living next to a naval base, so there were several massage parlors around. Went in and got a massage and hand job from a girl about my age. Went back the next week with more money, asked for a different girl since the first one was attractive but a bit cold and bored. The second girl was older, overweight, kind of rough looking, but a nice person. She could tell I was nervous, so she gave me a small glass of schnapps. She asked if I had done this before. I said no. Asked if I was a virgin. I said yes. She told me to relax and that she would take care of me. She gave me an actual real massage, then flipped me over, blowjob, then rolled on a condom and rode me to the finish. Afterwards, she slipped me her number and said if I wanted to see her again, to call her directly so she wouldn't have to split the money with the massage parlor. Overall good experience, no regrets. Did you ever call her again? Not me, but a friend of mine lost his virginity to a prostitute. He was thrilled when she told him she couldn't believe it was his first time, and he completely believed her. By the time she was finished, he'd fallen madly in love with her and attempted to hang out with her for a few weeks, without paying. He couldn't afford it, until she told him to disappear. Horrible to watch, but he wouldn't listen to any of us when we told him he was wasting his time and risking some serious trouble for nothing. Not me, but a friend. Same thing happened to a buddy with a stripper. No amount of explaining she was complimenting him to garner tips got through to him. To this day he still thinks deep down she liked him. Stumbled into a massage parlor in Canada drunk. Thought it was the bar my friends were at. After I realized it wasn't the bar, lady behind counter, would you like a massage? Me sure she was a kinda cute older lady. We talked pricing. She left and a large woman in spandex came in. Gave me a shitty massage. Sprayed lubes on my dick like she was a line cook spraying butter on a grill. And started jacking. I tried to hold her boob but she wouldn't let me touch her lol. I came, she threw a towel on me and walked out. Whoa. Thanks dudes and dudettes. Glad my awkward handy brightened so many people's day. Bruh, you got clickbaited, eye roll. Edit. Whoever gave me the gold and silver, thank you. I will use the power you have bestowed upon me wisely. Cheers. Everyone needs to experience an indifferent hand job from a bored Amazonian at least once in their lifetime. It's memories like this that you'll cherish when you're trapped in a retirement home, eating applesauce and having your ass wiped by a heavily tattooed Eastern European orderly. His technique is rough and he never seems to be able to get you entirely clean. You live with perpetual swamp ass. The only thing keeping you sane is savoring the memories of your sexual exploits. Lost my virginity at a Nevada brothel when I was 25 to an older woman. My wife knows and doesn't care at all. I paid for 90 minutes, which was a mistake lol. I was very sleepy after it. Overall it was a very positive experience. I had a lot of hang-ups about being a virgin and I grew up a lot after the experience. Before I lost my virginity, I was obsessed with sex and I would sexualize women, in my head, never allowed, all the time. But after I had sex, I realized sex was no big deal and I became focused on finding a partner for love. I also stopped viewing women as hopeful sexual partners and instead viewed them as just people. I changed what I was looking for from a relationship and ended up in a deeply fulfilling marriage. Did you end up with a lot of leftover time? It's interesting. The only people who tend to care about virginity are virgins. I remember the same thing about it being this huge deal until I lost it. After that I really couldn't give a shit if anyone was or wasn't fucking, and, like you, women stopped being this unobtainable target and I could start appreciating them as people. This is why I would never judge someone for paying for it. Get that fucking millstone off your neck however you can. It's easy to say oh it shouldn't bother you and no it shouldn't, but it does. I'm a high functioning autistic man so I have difficulty dating. I lost my virginity to a sex worker a few years ago at a legal brothel in Nevada in my early mid-20s. I had sexual experiences and had one girlfriend before that back in high school. I just never experienced vaginal intercourse. I went to the brothel with two goals in mind, one being to lose my virginity and have fun, The other was to learn how to be a good lover and how to please a woman. These brothels have websites where you can read bios on the sex workers that give a short description of their personality, what they like, what services they offer, etc. I found a handful of sex workers who I knew would be there when I arrived who fit what I was looking for, physically attractive. By the description I liked their personality, and that they were willing to teach instruct virgins. I did a bunch of research online beforehand on how to negotiate for a decent price since it's illegal for sex workers to explicitly list a price for their services. Prices are negotiated with the sex worker when you are at the brothel. When I arrived at the brothel, the women lined up and I already had a few women in mind who I wanted to have sex with. I ended up picking a short Asian woman about 2-3 years older than me. She was a very sweet woman with a big heart. She also really smart and loved to read, so I knew I could have a conversation with her. I told her exactly what I wanted, lots of foreplay at the beginning. Then I'd have sex with her, and then if I finished early I wanted to cuddle and just talk with her about whatever, and also that I wanted her to be my teacher and instruct me on how I could do things better. The sex ended up being great. I kissed her body and performed foreplay for about 25 minutes or so. Although I was having so much fun, it felt like a blissful eternity. Then I had sex with her, and since I was a virgin I didn't last long at all. We then cuddled and just talked about random shit and laughed a lot for the rest of the 30 minutes. She let me give her a head massage and stroke her hair, which I thought was really nice. I'm a very physically affectionate person, so it means a lot to me when I can do simple things like that. All in all, it was a wonderful experience and I went back a few more times after that for the same thing. One time I even hired a woman for an hour for a GFE, girlfriend experience, where we made out for the whole hour and I asked her again to instruct me on how to be an amazing kisser. I already knew how to kiss, but she taught me how to be a better kisser. All my experiences have been great and I'm considering going back fairly soon when I get my 2-week vacation off from work. I think the sex workers taught me well and I learned a lot in that very short period of time. It also gave me a lot more confidence with dating since I wasn't inexperienced in the bedroom anymore, and I also had a framework to work with that the sex workers had given to me. This all aside, my dating life is still pretty bad. The only way I am able to attract women is by pretending to be someone I'm not, by putting on a macho arsehole mask on. Of course I can only pretend to be someone I'm not for so long before I get tired of it and end up ghosting the woman. Whenever I follow the just be yourself advice I get ignored, or if I go on a date I inevitably get hit with the you're a nice sweet guy but. It's the exact same problem I faced in high school that I thought would end as an adult, but it never did. This has caused me to have a very warped sense of romance in dating. I've come to the conclusion that my personality just makes me incapable of being loved, attracted to by the opposite sex. Women only are attracted to me because I have a nice face and also when I put on my macho mask. If the sex workers in Nevada weren't so expensive, I'd just give up on dating entirely and just hire sex workers all the time whenever I wanted to have the company of a woman in an intimate sexual manner. My experiences with the sex workers have always been awesome precisely because I can just be myself and I get to experience intimacy from a woman. I don't have to worry about being too nice and getting rejected over it. All in all, I'd recommend it to people who are in a similar position as myself. If you're the kind of person who would be paranoid about feeling shame about it, then maybe not, but I personally couldn't care less and feel no shame at all. I'm a human being, damn it, and I want to be able to be myself once in a while around a woman and feel some love, intimacy, and sex from her. Lol. Asian woman about 2-3 years old. Hold up. Also high functioning male and also used to do the whole put a mask on and pretend to be someone else. Eventually I stopped, and although for ages I found it hard to get on with any women, when I eventually did find one who liked me, I knew she liked me and not the mask. And now we have been together for 4 years. You should try to stop wearing that mask and just be who you are. At first it'll suck, but you will never find the one for you if you're not being you. Keep your chin up. You may have 1000 bad dates being yourself, but it only takes that one date to go well to find the right person. Also, finding the right one is difficult for people who don't have autism, I hear, so it's not just us that have trouble anyway. Quite possibly the deepest and most honest thing I've read all week. Thanks for sharing. Don't give up. Something I've noticed as an autistic woman is that most autistics get on best with each other. I think it's because we're on the same mental operating system and don't see autistic quirks as rudeness like most NTs do. Most of my friends are autistic, and my boyfriend's on the spectrum too. Initially we thought he was a NT, but we've actually realized that he's on the spectrum too. Part of the reason why I was attracted to him was that I didn't have to mask with him, and he was more introverted and not super aggressively macho. There's not as many autistics as NTs out there, but I would recommend trying to date someone on the spectrum like yourself. Edit. NT equals neurotypical, which is a term the autistic community used to describe non-autistic people. I was a 31-year-old virgin that was tired of the stigma of being that way getting in the way of having confidence in myself and being able to talk to girls. I paid $900 or so for a prostitute near Reno at a brothel under the assumption I would get as much time as I needed since I was nervous and it was a slow weekday. After I was too nervous to get it up for the first half hour, I spent the second half hour freaking out that I was going to be the only guy ever to spend that kind of money to not have sex. After a total of an hour had gone by, she was asking me if I was secretly gay and hinting that I should just leave. It was the most humiliating experience of my life. I was seriously wanting to veer off the Mootin roads on the way home after that awful experience. I'm not against the adult sex worker industry at all and would actually vote to legalize it further in more places, but I would likely never try that again. With that being said, I am now a 32-year-old virgin who finally found love, but I'm still having trouble getting it up. As soon as the topic of sex comes up, erection immediately dies. I guess some of us are just fucking cursed. You should talk to a therapist. Whether your anxiety stems from the stigma you lived with for so long or something else, talking through the issues with a professional could probably really help, especially if you are now in a relationship with someone you really like. Think of it as an investment in the relationship. Dude, that's totally normal. The problem probably comes from placing a lot of pressure on yourself because you're quite a bit older and desperate to lose the stigma. Go talk to a sex therapist. I promise you're not cursed and are very capable of a healthy sex life once you understand the reasons for your erectile issues. She was asking me if I was secretly gay. The only proper response, look her up and down and say, I am now. I, 26M, wanted to try having sex as a bottom for the first time. Slept with a trans sex worker in Thailand. She took the condom off halfway through, and while I think I noticed at the time, was far too scared, nervous and submissive to say anything until after she had finished. I panicked and started telling her how unsafe I felt and that it wasn't okay for her to have done that. She laughed at me and claimed she was clean, waving a picture of a month-old HIV test in my face as she left. I went to a clinic the next day to get PEP. I'm now 10 days into the 28-day regimen of taking daily pills that make me feel sick and drowsy. It's ruined my vacation. I have hardly slept out of worry. HIV doesn't show up in tests for at least a month, and I feel like a complete idiot for allowing myself to be in a position where I may have just contracted an incurable virus for the sake of one moment of sexual thrill. There are many reasons to get involved with sex workers. If you decide that it's for you, please just be safe. Jeez. By any reasonable definition, you were raped by that sex worker. You should talk to a professional about this if you haven't already. That must have been traumatic. Sorry you went through that. Hope you're doing okay now. I was overly awkward at first, but it turned out amazing. Japanese bathhouses are the best. Ever have a woman wash you with her lathered up body? She cleaned my feet with her nipples. I want to go back now. That is a sentence I never thought I'd read. I lost my virginity to an escort about a month ago, age 25. It wasn't particularly good. I've thought about it a lot and I'm still not sure if I regret it or not. I regret it in some ways but not others. If anyone's interested, I decided to look into escorts because I didn't want to reach a point in life where I felt old and bitter because I missed out on a normal human experience. Around that time I had been reading a lot of incel type posts about people who had given up and felt bitter etc, and I didn't want to feel that way. I googled for escorts in my country, found an agency in a nearby town, but apparently it had shut down very recently. Eventually came across a pretty big comprehensive platform for self-advertising which contained reviews. Browsed that until I found a couple girls that served my area. Messaged 2 of them and explained that I was a virgin and asked if that would be an issue for whatever reason. One replied fairly quickly that it wouldn't be an issue. No response from the other. After finishing work that Friday, I withdrew enough money for a 90-minute, logged onto the website and booked a session for that night. I drank about 3 cans of cider waiting nervously. When the time came, she called me saying she couldn't quite find my place. I offered to stand outside and a couple minutes later a car drove by. She got out and I escorted her to my place. She smelled a bit of smoke and was about average in attractiveness. A little chubby, average height, perky chest. I offered her a drink. She declined. I had another can of cider and I escorted her upstairs where she changed into some lingerie. She asked if I was nervous. Never mentioned anything about my virginity. In hindsight, I'm not sure if she remembered my initial message, or maybe she thought I'd be embarrassed and didn't want to bring it up. I said somewhat and she offered a massage. So I got undressed and accepted. It lasted about 15 minutes while we spoke about random things like work, what she does outside of escorting, what I do, traveling etc. She was actually somewhat interesting to talk to. After the massage she tells me to flip over. I'm not particularly hard at this point, but she unrolls a condom and blows me until I get hard enough. She climbs on top and rides me for just over a minute or so until I finish. She cleans up and asks if I want her to leave or continue the massage. I ask for her to continue the massage for another few minutes, which she does. Then she gets dressed and gets ready to leave while asking me to leave a review. Ideally I would have wanted to go again since there was plenty of time, but I guess that wasn't an option and I didn't ask, so I just escorted her out. If I could redo it, I would have tried to have expectations set more clearly beforehand, like whether or not it would be okay to have sex multiple times in the session, etc. Oh, and I probably should have jerked off in the last 24 hours to last longer. Oh, and I probably should have jerked off in the last 24 hours to last longer. Yup. The tactical wank. An associate of mine lost his virginity to a sex worker. He couldn't finish in the allot in time, so she gave him extra for free. He still couldn't manage it. He's rather proud that he bought the services of such an attractive lady, claiming she's better than other partners he'd seen others with. Furthermore, that he was worthy of their extra time. He also reckons it's his duty to see the world and when he can will go on a world sex tour. An associate. Good luck seeding the world without finishing. Very businesslike. Just wasn't interesting. Nothing wrong with her, but the lack of chase just made it feel pointless. Never did it again. Don't regret it. It was good. I knew what I was expecting, but my biggest problem was that I was a bit drunk, high on weed and haven't masturbated in a while. Girl was super hot, but like very formal, no touching, no anything. Assumed one position and that was it. TBH, I actually expected to stay around for 20 minutes, but in reality as soon as I came, I was considered finished. Wasn't too awkward, but my second time ever was much better. Also with prostitute, who let touch her, we switched few positions, she gave me a blowjob. Was also talkative and nice, was fucking amazing. So yeah, I don't regret it, but just make sure you pick the right one. Don't go to the first one you see or hottest one you see. Nice girl will make it better than with some random girl who also doesn't have any idea what is she doing. I was about 21 years old, having dinner with friends. When I mentioned I was still a virgin, they suggested taking me to this stripper prostitute's place. They did all the talk for me and got me a really nice looking girl. When we got to the hotel, she asked me if it was my first time. I said yes. She asked why I hadn't had sex before, which at the time baffled me because to me my incompetence was obvious. Then she said, "It's easy, you get a boner and I'll fuck you." I felt very comfortable, didn't fall in love or anything, and I think it demystified sex for me and gave me a clearer perspective. Don't regret it at all. I had a friend that, while he's older and grown out of it now, firmly fit into the neckbud category when he was younger. I'll call him Beardly. One of our other friends was pretty financially sound, even just out of high school, so he decided to take a trip to Amsterdam to celebrate leveling up in life. He didn't want to go alone, so he took this guy with him. All expenses paid. Sometime when they were there, they got talking about how Beardly was still a virgin. So they decided to pop over to the red light and get him a hooker. The way Beardley describes it makes it seem like the worst voluntary sexual experience ever. First she set a timer, so he was immediately under pressure, gave a super underwhelming blowjob which led to intercourse where he had to close his eyes and reach deep into the spank bank to make himself bust before the time was up because in his words, there was no tread left on the tires so all I could do was just bang up the sides. I've visited escorts 5 times now. Here are my experiences. First time I decided to go see an escort, I was 25 and a virgin. Growing up socially awkward and being really sexually frustrated and lonely, I decided to take the plunge. I thought, fuck it, who cares? I found an escort site with reviews, ads, forums. Found this one girl that really caught my eye and decided to book with her. I was super nervous and my anxiety was through the roof leading up to the appointment. She was smoking hot and a very bubbly and outgoing personality, so she made me feel at ease right away. Given that she was really hot and it was my first time, I lasted a total of 1 minute and became too embarrassed anxious I didn't get it up again, so I left after the hour was over. Second time I went to see the same girl, this time for 2 hours. Much better experience. She was very sweet and bubbly and I could tell she enjoys what she does. We had a good time with some good fucking and good conversation. I don't regret seeing her at all and she made me feel great in terms of self-confidence and social anxiety. Although I only saw her twice simply because she was very expensive. I now know why. It was about $750 for the 2 hours, but in my opinion all worth it. Third time to the 5th time was with a different girl and she has been great as well. Very fun, bubbly attitude and an overall great person that is just amazing in the sack. I think prostitution should be legal and regulated. These women are just people like you and I that just want to be happy and make a living.